Gary, let's take a moment and say thank you to our sponsors at Fuji Sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've been working with us for a very long time, not only on this podcast, but also at the Academy. And I'm taking a peek at their website right now, and they have a brand new ultra light gi. Now, this is mind-blowing. I'm looking at my size. A2 is 2.75 pounds. I mean, that's under 3 pounds. That's mind-blowing.
I could even lift that. And go to their website, fujisports.com. Check it out. Anything you could need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find at fujisports.com.
Hey, it's been a while since we started RŌL TV project.
It's been a while since you started it. I did come in later, and I can't say enough about it, especially the new platform. It's really amazing, fully customizable, and you know a little bit more about the structure.
Well, so 2 things you need to know. One is the subscription service, which is $9 a month. You can get access to hundreds of videos, hundreds of drills, techniques, and so on in a very nice library categorized as you need them. But 2 different lessons. You can actually purchase those individually and you own them. So the subscription is not tied to it at all. You can look at things like spider guard, half guard sweeps, half guard chokes, folding pass, and so on. There's so many of them out there. So take a look and see where you need help with the videos, right? 30%. If you type in RŌL Radio as a code.
Who doesn't like saving money? Go to rolacademy.tv. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. That ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content that you have come to expect. On this episode, we have IBJJF gi and no-gi Pan American champion and Fight to Win featherweight champion, Daniel Maira. Today, Daniel discusses his teaching philosophy and how it differs from many others, promoting students based on that philosophy, how to truly compare jiu-jitsu to a game of human chess, rolling with Mikey Musumeci, and a ton more. Here's the RŌL Radio with Movement Art co-owner and head instructor and Mikey Musumeci black belt, Daniel Maira.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we're live.
Here we go.
How was your day? Don't answer that. You grumpy.
I am grumpy.
I had a fabulous morning, actually.
Good for you.
You know what I did? I'll tell you what I did.
Okay.
No, seriously.
I like the way you asked me how I was, and then it's all about you.
I really don't care about the answer. I just want to share with you. No. Listen, I took my son on a metro train. We went back to a couple stations back, and we took just a few stops. 10, 15-minute ride. We went to a library, and then we came back. That's why I was kind of.
Is that why you were running late?
Well, because train was 15 minutes late.
Oh, blame it on the train.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how metro is. 50 minutes. Anyway.
That's how it works here.
Yeah. But it was cool. He got the whole, punching ticket whole thing.
So the whole train experience.
Yeah. It was the first one. Yeah. So
how is he's 18 now? 19?
Funny.
No.
Funny.
So which one was it? Was it your 5-year-old or
yeah,
your?
Yeah, my 5-year-old.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Braxton.
Fun.
Yeah. He loved it. He sat on the top of the train, bottom of the train. Yeah, whole thing.
All over the place.
Oh yeah. And then he discovered the folding seats, and then it went down the.
Nice.
Then I was open,
close the whole time.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
All right. Hey,
why are you grumpy?
Why am I grumpy?
Yeah.
This is going on too long. I just the whole morning flew by. I got nothing done. I got yelled at on my way out the door. We'll talk about that later. So that's why I'm grumpy. It's all Margaret's fault.
Oh.
How's that?
So we went from Margaret is awesome last week to today you're grumpy because it's all Margaret's fault.
It's her. I didn't say she was wrong or she did anything wrong. I just said she's the reason why I'm grumpy.
We do need to bring her on the show.
It'll never happen.
I genuinely would love
never
to
happen. Never happen.
Because you don't want her or she won't do it?
I'd love for her to be here. I'd love for her to be here. And then I'll edit in another track. We got to get to Daniel. But I'll edit in another track underneath her to respond to everything she says. So, yeah, let's have her. But let's get to our guest today. Enough of this nonsense.
Daniel, how are you? Sorry you had to witness this firsthand, but this was important things to get out of the way, okay?
No worries. How you guys doing? It's a pleasure to be here.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you so
doing
much.
great. Gary's grumpy, so it is what it is. But
We
great to
can't all
have
be up all the time.
great to have you. Great to have you part of this conversation. We recently talked to Nick, and I know you tuned in, you listened to that episode, and you guys are great partners, establishing or making waves on the East Coast as far as jiu-jitsu is concerned. What are your thoughts on jiu-jitsu these days?
Yeah, I mean, it's a young sport. It's continuously evolving, but it's so cool to see like the forefront of that, or beyond the forefront of that, and see jiu-jitsu evolve at such a lightning pace. It's really, really cool to see. Every time like there's some new technique or new meta that comes out, it's like we try to be on the cutting edge of everything. We try to be evolving with the times or ahead of the times as best we can. It's like that arms race of jiu-jitsu technique, and it's so cool to see it evolve in real time and to see like the short history of it and see that evolution. It's very, very cool. So I'm very excited to see what is coming, both professionally in the sport, for the athletes, for the spectators, different promotions, but also just technically to see how far advanced people have already come since I've been training jiu-jitsu, since I started. But also like maybe 10 years from now, 20, 30 years from now, how advanced the sport is going to be. I'm very, very excited to see that.
Yeah, I recently talked to one of my students, and I feel like, and this is just my personal view, but I'm curious what you think about this. 10 years ago, the evolution, quote unquote, evolution of jiu-jitsu was much slower, and today it's really fast paced. Things are changing very fast. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. The quicker information can spread and travel, the quicker, people are going to learn, people are going to adapt, people are going to improvise, and that shared knowledge, it becomes like kind of like that hive-like, knowledge sharing kind of thing with the internet. It's the coolest thing. So I just remember even like when I was a white belt, I didn't really have a coach like teaching me do this, do that. After a couple of stripes at white belt, it was basically like a lot of YouTube videos, and I'd travel and do seminars and train different schools and everything like that, and just being in the mix with all these different, being exposed to all these different styles and different techniques and things. It was like really cool to learn and try to organize all of my jiu-jitsu right away that I was learning. It's like, man, there's so much information. We got to put this together. And so now it's like, it's spreading so quickly that people can literally organize large portions of jiu-jitsu into instructionals and then just get those out to everybody. So to see someone be able to take a chunk of this person's game and that person's game and to bring everything together so quickly is really, really amazing. The evolution of an individual from white belt to black belt, I believe, if done correctly, can be far shorter than, say the average 10 years, whatever. But then the question is like, well, then the evolution of what is a high level black belt, it's like, it's just going to get higher and higher and higher. So yeah, definitely. I agree with that. The sharing of information is way faster now.
So you bring up a really good point, right? It's because we have access to all this data. We have videos and, BJJ fanatics and God knows what else. Like it seems like the information is everywhere, right? And it's accessible on our phones all the time. Gary and I, we talked about this all the time on the show. It does appear that establishing the skill set is much faster, or we have an opportunity to establish the same skill set much faster than we would have done, 10 years ago, 20 years, or 30 years ago, right? But at the same time, do you think that the bar of becoming a black belt is getting pushed up? And what I mean by this, 20 years ago, let's just say 50 years ago, to get a black belt typically was about 10 years or whatever, 12 years, right? It was a lot of grind and so on, right? Today, because of technology we have around us, that same skill set could be accomplished. I'm not an expert on this, but let's just hypothetically say half of the time. So does that mean that we can achieve a black belt in 5 years? Or does that mean that we still achieve black belt in 10 years because that black belt just got a little bit farther away because of complexity of the art and the sport and what we expect of those individuals? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it would be the latter. I think there's kind of two things there that I would say a lot. And the first is like, there's an old quote that says like, we're drowning in information and starving for wisdom. And if you can strive for wisdom and to truly understand why do things work, how do they connect together, and get to a point where you can self-correct, you can almost like teach yourself or at least explore on your own and actually improve. That's what you should be really striving for. You want to learn how to think, not what to think. And I think old school jiu-jitsu is very much like people were taught what to think, in the sense that they didn't have as much of the information. So if you see what a black belt is now versus what a black belt was 20 years ago, it's not to say that they're not a black belt or they don't have the same amount of hard work and dedication that they put in, but there's simply more information. Analogous to a computer programmer, if you had somebody say learning how to or just say they're just operating at an office job on the Windows 95 operating system, it's like there's far less for them to understand how to do than on today's computers. It's like the level of technology is just simply higher. And so because of this, you have to know far more, where now you have children in low grades who are doing things on computers that adults couldn't do, 20 years ago, whatever. We have coding being taught in schools and stuff. So it's very, very cool to see the level of technology increase. And I believe it is the same with black belts and with jiu-jitsu. I think you are right, though. I think it's still going to take somebody like 10 years to get to that level, but that level that they hit is going to be much higher than the level that they were able to hit 20 years ago in that same time frame.
I'll put you on a spot here. So do you think that the guys who got their black belts 20 years ago are not on the same level that the guys who are getting the black belts today?
I would say it depends on the level of evolution that they've had. If I say I get a job working, we'll use the computer thing still, and I understand really well how to program at a certain level. I know all the techniques and everything at this level here, but the problem is the job demands this level. And it's like at 20 years ago, you could get away with this. It's like, but you want to still have a job now. Do you continue to evolve and learn and keep working at that? Or did you stop? So if I would say if they stopped, if they got their black belt and they kind of chilled out and they rested on their laurels, yeah, I would say it's the level of technique that they're at. If they have not evolved with jiu-jitsu, then they're probably pretty far behind the 8 ball, even further behind than a lot of lower belts who are maybe trying to compete. And in order to compete at today's, in today's competitions, you really have to be trying to be on the forefront of that technology as best you can. And I think that there's a lot of like maybe hobbyists, older school guys 20 years ago got their black belt, and then they kind of, they focus more on different aspects of their life and other things that are going on. And obsession is kind of a young man's game. And so they just allowed their self to stop evolving. So if that's what happened, I would say yes. If not, then no. I mean, I know I have other friends of mine personally who got their black belt when I was a white belt, and they're still competing on the world stage right now with the best on the planet. And, that's a really big thing, like basically for them to say, like, they've been putting that work in nonstop over the last, 7-8 years to stay relevant, to stay up to date. So if they stay up to date, yes. If not, I don't really care what the name is or who they are or what belt they have or where they're from. If you're not up to date, you're not up to date.
Yeah, and that's part of the beauty of this sport. One, it is a perishable skill, right? I mean, even taking a year break, and we've seen this on the highest level with the highest level competitors. A year break could really, take your skill away, wash it off, and it's very difficult to come back. But two, the evolution that we talked about, it really, things are moving just fast. Really fast. I mean, if you don't stay up with it, then you're right. There's a lot to one catch up to, and then two. We
have it all the time at Movement Art, man. Like, people will come in and visit, and they'll be brown belts, black belts, and they'll come in to visit, and they'll just be like, what are you doing with these white belts and blue belts? And they're getting like mopped up by like blue belts and. Oh,
you don't have to look. You don't have to look far. Just watch like. Kids Pan Ams, like some of these freaking 12-year-olds will like mop the floor with me. Like, it's like, what? This is
it's
like
not a slam on.
I don't even want to watch this.
Yeah,
No,
it's not a slam on any of the big grappling organizations. But when they bring
not
the
at
8, when they bring the 8 and 12 and 14-year-old kids out, that's exciting. You know, you're like, because their energy level's so hard, and I don't think they're thinking about. There's like no what ifs. You know, I don't think they have a game. They're just going hard with all the technique that they know, and those are always really, really fun. That's when all the older guys get their phones out and they're like, "This is the fight I'm going to film because this is going to be fun. I'm going to show this to my kid when I get home." For sure.
But it's so challenging, though. I imagine we have a lot of these people who will come in, and some of them will join the gym as a brown belt, purple belt, black belt. And so we have, purple, brown, and black belts from other gyms who then have joined Movement Art, and they're like, man, like I've just been wasting my time. I can't believe my jiu-jitsu has not been up to date. And so then they have to like spend all this time just to get up to date so then they can continue learning in their progression. And one thing that we try to really do is just help people fall in love with learning and that process more than anything. And then there's so many people who have come and visited brown belts, black belts, and they want to join, they talk all this stuff, and then they train and they're like, you're telling me I got to start almost all over again because I haven't stayed up to date? I'm good. I'm going to go be a big fish in another little pond. I'm going to go look for a little pond.
So what's okay? So walk me through this scenario. So what you have somebody coming and visit, and they become a member at your academy, and they have, I don't know, hypothetically 6, 8, 10 years of experience at that point. They're, let's say, purple, brown belt, whatever the case is. And obviously their skill is not to where you would see a brown belt to be to your expectations. How does that conversation take place? What do you do? Do you take the belt away? Do you encourage them to work more for the next few years before they are quote unquote up to your expectations? Like how is that dynamic unfold? Because that's always interesting, right?
It's a tough conversation to have for sure, because on the one hand, if you actually care about their development, you actually care about the person, and you want them to actually reach their goals and be good, you can't lie to them and you can't sugarcoat it for them. And so on the one hand, we would say, hey, listen, here is the organization, the techniques you have to know, the tools you need, and the way you have to think about jiu-jitsu, the way you have to truly understand jiu-jitsu. If you can get to this level, we will promote you. Now, because you came in at a higher belt rank, it's going to take you a much longer time to get to that level of knowledge. And that's not to say that you can't get to it. It will take you much longer. However, I don't believe you should turn your belt in. I don't believe you should give up your belt. Man, you've put all this time in. You've worked so hard for that belt, and you've got to that level. So I definitely don't believe in like taking stripes away or a belt away and restarting someone or anything like that. However, it is very fair to say, hey, you've come in as a purple belt, as a brown belt, but you're not up to date. Let's get you up to date. How can we get you up to date as fast as possible? Can we get you there? Can we have you understand jiu-jitsu truly on that level? And then once you get to that level, we're going to promote you. We're going to push you further. But ultimately, we care more about your understanding of jiu-jitsu, your actual level of jiu-jitsu. If someone asks you a question and we were to promote you to another belt, say you're a purple belt, we promote you to brown belt. Man, you're a brown belt. People are going to ask you questions and you're not going to have the answers. And I don't want to put you in that situation. I want you to have the answer, to have it ready, and to be able to show your work. I'm not asking you to memorize, hey, what's 4 + 4? What's 5 + 5? Like, these problems aren't hard to do, but there's so many of them. So if you just understand how to do the basic thinking behind it, do your work behind it, you're going to be able to teach it very, very well. And I truly believe if you can't teach it and explain it simply, you don't really understand it very well.
So are you saying that it's not so much the physicality of what you need to do and what you need to know, it's more of the mental aspect of it, the understanding of it? And if you can relay that information, whether you can pull it off or not, if you can relay that information, well, then you're going to meet the standards that you hold at Movement Art.
100%. Yes. There's two ways basically that I would be okay with promoting someone. And Nick and I kind of talk about this a lot. The two ways are like, you have to be able to perform beating everyone else at that level, basically on the highest level stage in competition. So if you can do that with pure athleticism and you're able to get those results, I mean, I kind of have to shut up and just be like, well, you beat everybody else. I mean, what else am I going to do? But I would say that's incredibly difficult to do. So then the other, say you don't have any athleticism or physicality, you know, you could do it the other way as well and say, do you have all the information, all the cheat codes, as it were? It's like, okay, that would get it too. But the reality is that everybody has a certain level of athleticism, and that's varying, you know, to varying degrees. And that's something that they can work on maybe, but only in small margins. You can do rehab, you can do mobility. And as we age, it becomes much more difficult to train hard consistently. So I don't believe that it's the physicality that ultimately makes the difference. Ultimately, what makes the difference is that jiu-jitsu technique, your organization of the technique, and your application of that knowledge. So if you have that knowledge, and this is something that we always tell people, namely the kids class, we explain it in very simple terms there. We say, you know what 1 + 1 is, right? Kids, yeah, it's 2. I say, okay, what if you get really, really, really angry? Are you going to know what 1 + 1 is? Yeah, it's still going to be 2. What if you're really happy? What if you're really sad? What if you're, freaking out, going crazy, and I'm yelling at you, and then there's people taking pictures, and there's a referee, and then I go, what's 1 + 1? You're not going to say 11 all of a sudden, are you? No, it's 2. Okay. So as long as you can ultimately comprehend that knowledge, and it doesn't matter how you're feeling physically, if you're tired, if you're angry, if you're upset, if you're on a high or a low, you can answer that problem correctly. This is how we see jiu-jitsu. And since you are, if you're doing jiu-jitsu correctly, you're relying on like your skeletal system. So as long as your bones can support that other person's weight, and then you have the athleticism to place your bone structure in a certain alignment, you're good to go. Now, the older someone is, the less athleticism that they have, the more they're going to have to compensate for that lack of athleticism with their knowledge, with their information, because they have to put things in the right place earlier because they don't have as much time. Now, when someone is super, super athletic or flexible or any other, athletic attribute, they then can compensate for the lack of knowledge with that athleticism. So the only time you ever need athleticism or use athleticism in jiu-jitsu is when you make a mistake. Technically, you make a mistake with your knowledge. You were too slow putting a frame up. You were too slow swiping that foot off. You were, you did the wrong thing at the wrong time. Now you got a problem. Now you're headed down a bad road. You need a little bit of athleticism to get out of that, to reset that position, or to work your way through it, or fight your way through it, something like this. So I would say the players who have a lot of athleticism, I'm going to really help them. Like, you guys really got to get on point with your technique. And that's what you got to focus on. You should be able to win without that athleticism, without having to compensate with that athleticism. Now, understand, when you make a mistake, it's okay to compensate with that athleticism. Do it. You should. You have a tool, use it. And then people like my mom, for example, doesn't really have athleticism. And she's much older, she's much smaller, and she has her own injuries and struggles that she's working through as well. She's got to do rehab and stuff all the time just to be able to train and roll. But even though she's a little old lady, if she puts her frames in the right place at the right time, you're not getting past her guard. You have to get rid of those frames, then you can smash her. And then, it's probably incredibly easy to tap an old lady out after that. Now, if she can think that quickly, and just every time you swipe a frame, she places a frame back in place, and she's regripping and making her alignment in such a way that you're not able to just crush her right away. I mean, yeah, then she can off balance you, then she can sweep you, then she can start passing. And on the top, I mean, she's playing the same exact game in reverse, where she's like, oh, she wants to go forward. They're putting a frame up. Let's get rid of that frame. Then we can move forward again. So if she doesn't have that athleticism, she then has to compensate with like 2 or 3 times as much knowledge, making those decisions more accurately, more precisely, and quicker. And if she's able to do that, she can hang with whoever. But even if maybe she can't hang with whoever physically, I would still have a very, very hard time not justifying, like giving her a brown belt, a black belt, or whatever else down the line. So yeah, 100%. I think she could easily earn the next belt and improve. And I'll tell you one thing, with the amount of knowledge that she has to compensate for and know, if she has to teach a class, if somebody asks a question or anything, she not only can tell you the right thing to do at the right time, she can tell you why, and then she can tell you why that works and what happens if they do this or what happens if they do that. And she'll have all those answers. Okay, you got all that? I'll give you a belt.
Nice. First of all, how is it to train with your mom?
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's a little different for me, I feel like, than everybody else.
Does she catch you?
Just because she's my mom. Say that again.
Does she catch you? Does she
No comment. No comment.
You can be honest. Nobody's listening to this.
Was it your mom?
Only.
So this is Mama Freestyle, so everybody knows who we're talking about. And
yeah.
Is it her knee cut that's supposed to be devastating? I think that's what Nick was saying.
No, dude, I don't play with that. I'm not.
we need to talk about schedules and get her on the show and
absolutely.
Get to the bottom of this, because
Dude,
there's a lot of there's different stories.
If I'm being honest with you, when I'm training with her, like, and I kind of do the same with everybody basically, but we have a joke at Movement Art, like, never let anybody pass your guard. Like, I don't care if you're training with a child. I don't care who you're training with. You never let anyone pass your guard. Period. Point blank. That's that. If I train with my mom, there's a lot of places I can't let her get to because she has all the answers. So then you're like, you got to play technical with her, and you just simply can't let her get to those spots. So I'm not going to let my mom.
I do want, if you're not watching this on YouTube, when we were asking Danny these questions, there was a lot of body movement, a lot of pulling on that shirt collar.
He's
he got a little nervous.
He's clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like it's so funny though, but it's definitely different for me to train with her than with everybody else. However, I would say it's the same. Like, if my mom gets a position on me or like whatever, like, I have to respect it the exact same as if I'm in a real competition with a high level black belt. It's if you do the wrong thing at the wrong time, she knows the right answer and she will capitalize on that if you make that mistake. Now, getting me to that spot is going to be very, very difficult. And so there's a lot of interplay with, like, you know, like we were talking about, swiping frames and putting frames back up. And I would say, like, the majority of the role kind of happens in there. And then, there's some trash talk going on a little bit in there as well.
Hold on, wait. Pause that.
Right.
Who talks trash? You to your mom or your mom to you?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Well, no, both of us. I got to get it from somewhere.
Listen, so we talked about a lot about these differences in skill sets, right? Where they need to get compensated physically, mechanically, technically, and so on. Do you think that part of the jiu-jitsu weakness as a system, as an art, as a sport, is the fact that we don't truly have defined expectations of the students? And what I mean by this, you know, we stop by at your academy. The expectations are going to be completely different if I go down the street to another academy. They might be similar, but they are different. They really, it's very difficult to really find, short of large teams and large organizations, you know, Alliance or Gracie Baja, you know, they have
even in those though, it's different.
Even in those, absolutely, even in those, right? So, do you think that's like a weakness of the art that we don't have? Because if you look at it, you know, if you look at Taekwondo, karate, you know, some of those more traditional ones, even judo, you know, there's clear expectations. You got to do your katas, you got to meet certain requirements. Boom, you get promoted, you move on. And it's very dry, kind of cut, you know, milestones, if you will. In jiu-jitsu, none of that exists.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is a huge. There's no, like, what would it be, like, control of, there's no like standard, there's no baseline that everybody has to adhere to. And so because of this, it opens the door for anyone to say, I'm a so-and-so, I know so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, I think it's like the credentials do matter, so you can get closer to a higher level or not. But the real question is, what is a higher level in jiu-jitsu? And it's not just, can you win matches at the top level? It's not just, can you go hard? It's how well do you understand jiu-jitsu? And this is something that is super cringe to me that people do all the time in the jiu-jitsu community, is they make the comparison of jiu-jitsu and chess. And they say, oh, jiu-jitsu is just like human chess. And then they will proceed to not use any of the concepts, strategies, or techniques from chess. So I'm like, how is it like human chess, bro? First of all, you don't even play chess. You don't even know what you're talking about. But second of all, like, you're not using any of these concepts. You're like, jiu-jitsu is just like chess. Go hard, go hard, go hard. What? No, if I try to play chess and then I start throwing the pieces just because, like, that's not the game. You are not playing the game. So, all right, let's talk about it in the realm of chess, if we will. Okay, we have the pieces set up a certain way, and there is rules in the game. You can't just change the rules of chess and have the game be the same. The second you change one rule, the meta will change. The game is different. And you'll see this, sub only to points, for example. Right. So there we have a set group of rules. All right. And those are there for better or for worse, whatever. We can talk about that later. But then you have to understand, okay, how do the pieces move? How can I actually make the game function? And then you say, okay, well then if these pieces can move in this way and those pieces can move in this way, now we know how they all move. Okay, then how can we move them in a way to trap our opponent to whatever? And so it turns out you can break it down even further. You have openings, you have the middle, you have the end game. And so then it's like, you have to be a good chess player, you have to learn not just all the openings, but you have to learn all the openings and then the counters to those openings, and then how to recognize what opening they're using so that you can apply the correct counter to their opening. And this is all just to start the game. And then you're talking also about strategy. And are you an offensive player, defensive player? There's all these different things that you could go through with. But ultimately, it's your knowledge of the game and the ability to exploit the rules and play within the rules that is going to give you the highest level or allow you to have the highest level of understanding, and then the highest level of teaching. And then ultimately, if you have that level of understanding and you can explain it clearly and concisely, why don't you just coach yourself? Why don't you just apply that information to yourself and then go win competitions? And, that's what we try to do. That's what Mikey does. And the list goes on. But, we truly believe that that's the difference of, understanding the level of the game, or your level of understanding of the game, rather, is the most important thing.
And most definitely, yeah. I mean, rules of engagement really make the game, make the activity, make whatever we are engaging with, right? Mm-hmm. So do you think that ADCC versus IBJJF, those are two different arts or two different sports?
No, I would put it as like, it's the same sport. You're talking about submission grappling. The problem is when you play with the rules in such a way that it's not really a complete, like a circle of a rule set where everything has the potential to counter everything, to shut everything else down, to block everything else. Like, everything has to be equal. And I think when you start playing with the rules too much, obviously there's so many issues with IBJJF, with the rule set. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but I really believe it's the best we have at the moment to incentivize people to actually try to attack, to actually try to submit their opponent, to actually go forward. When you go to ADCC, you again, they're going to gamify the rules. They're going to try to hack the rules. They're going to find any loophole they can. You know, I've been through the referee course, the rules meetings for ADCC many times. The referee course one time, but the rules meetings many times. And I can tell you there's loopholes that you can exploit, and every competitor is trying to find those loopholes to exploit. And ultimately the rule set favors a much more stalling approach. If you theoretically, now that's not how everybody plays it, but theoretically, if you were to say, how could I make the perfect game plan for ADCC, there would be a lot more stalling in that. If you talk about sub only, again, as another offshoot of that, if you thought about it and you said, how could I make the perfect game plan to win sub only? It doesn't have hardly as much jiu-jitsu in it because there's no incentives to actually do anything. All right, so you don't need to learn how to wrestle, because even if you can wrestle really well and you get the takedown, you don't get anything for it. So, all right, I'm not going to learn how to wrestle or do takedowns or judo or any of that anymore. All right, then let's see if I'm at a sub-only spot and I'm thinking like, man, I really want to get good at guard passing. It's like, all right, I'm going to really, really get good at guard passing. That's great. And then you do it in the competition. You realize, well, I don't get any points for that. So there's no reason to work on that. Okay, what about my guard? Yeah, I got to have a really good guard. Well, if no one's trying to pass, then why do I need a guard? And even if I have a guard and I sweep them, it doesn't matter. So really, I could only submit them from my guard. That would be really cool. Or take their back and then submit them. That would be really cool. But the problem is they're not trying to pass. So then it's like not really playing guard versus someone who's attacking you. So they're not attacking. So then it's like, okay, so I don't really need to know how to have a guard. So then double pull. All right, you should have a really good double pull game so you can, leg lock and do all those different things. But again, you really don't need that either. If you just know how to kick somebody in the nuts and just bust scoot backwards a little bit, just do a few leg pummels and stall.
Well, this escalated quickly.
I'm just saying that's kind of all you need to do. So if you don't need any of the facets of jiu-jitsu, if you can just stall your way to the overtime rounds, then how could you win in overtime? Oh, you got to be really good at subbing people in the spiderweb position or on the back or something like that. It's like, okay, cool. But that's not really true either, because you could just win by ride time. So really, if you wanted to have the perfect strategy to win the sub-only rule set, you need to get really, really good at just kicking people away and stalling. And you need to get really, really good at shelling up on the back and maybe escaping the back. And then you need to get really good at just holding the back, not submitting from the back, just holding. That's all you need to do. And then you can literally win every match via ride time.
So if that's the case, so why do we have all these different organizations and different rule sets and all? Why there isn't just one?
Nobody thinks about that in sub only that deeply. They think, oh yeah, submission. That's why jiu-jitsu is invented. Go for the kill. The sub is the most important thing. We should have a match that is submission only. And it's like, I agree with that sentiment, man. When I fight, if I don't sub you or just demolish your life on points, I think I'm just horrible. And I just want to I need to go back to the drawing board. And we have a joke, Mikey, Nick, and I were always like, if we mess up a bolo or something, we say we're in bolo prison. It doesn't matter if we win the match. We got to fix it. So I agree with that sentiment. But to be honest, if you're playing a game where you can win without submitting the person, everybody's just going to do that. And in IBJJF, if you pass the guard, you get points. Takedown, you get points, and so on. So then people have to prevent those points from happening, because now they're in a dilemma where if they do nothing and they take no risks, they will lose the match anyway. So they have to do something. And so then when they start to do something offensive, that also opens them up to be attacked, and then they can be beat. I can't lose a chess game if I never sit down to the table. But if you have a rule set that is set up in a way where you can sit down to the table, and then every time you attack, they can attack, and you're taking turns for turn, going back and forth, that's how I believe jiu-jitsu should be done. And it's very, very hard to do that in a rule set that doesn't promote that. So if the rule set promotes wrestle stalling, if the rule set promotes stalling and shelling and winning on ride time, then that's what the top athletes are going to figure out. And that's what they're going to end up doing.
And is that why a lot of times jiu-jitsu people say is boring?
Oh, incredibly boring. Yeah.
Do you think that jiu-jitsu is boring?
No, for me, I love it. I love watching the sport. Depending on the rule set that I'm watching, I have a really, really hard time watching submission only, unless there's a massive skill disparity where it just doesn't matter what the rules are. The person's just going to get mollywopped anyway. But ultimately, like, I have a hard time with that because it's like you'll see somebody halfway go for a leg lock and then somebody will just kick out like a spaz, and then somebody else will just try to halfway go for something and then kick out later. It's like there's no risk. There's never any. There's no commitment. There's no taking a real chance. There's no taking a risk. And so I would rather watch a high risk match in the IBJJF, in the gi even, that is a little bit slower. And so, the margin for error is smaller, the risk is higher, but people are willing to take those risks because there's a rule that says if you take that risk and you succeed, you're going to be rewarded. And I think in ADCC, in the first 3 minutes or the first 6 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on however long that round is, there's no incentive. So then people can game the system incredibly easily. And it promotes, if you can get to a spot where you can just stall, and it's like, it just promotes, that basically, and then at the end, it'll just favor whoever the better wrestler is. So if I'm a good wrestler, say, I would just stall until the overtime, and then I would just wrestle them down and win by 2 points every time. Unless somebody, again, is a better wrestler than me, then it's like, now we start kind of being like, well, I can't actually wrestle. But if they're the better wrestler than me, then why can't they use that game plan on me to beat me? So then you might as well just, if I wanted to watch high school wrestling, I would just watch high school wrestling. So, and I say that because of my level of trash wrestling. I don't say that because of like the top guys at ADCC have high school level wrestling. That's not what I'm saying. But you're dropping. If you watch like Jordan Burroughs or somebody, man, I would watch that.
What?
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to backtrack a little bit because you brought up Mikey, and from doing research today, I think there was a point before you met Mike, not long before you met Mike, where you actually were thinking about giving up jiu-jitsu. And if that is in fact the case, if I'm right about that, I was hoping maybe we could talk a little bit about that and how his influence, or even how what you saw around him changed your mind and got you back into it.
Yeah, man. I remember when I had I first just got my brown belt. I switched to Marcelo's full time. At that point, I was already training there quite a bit as a purple belt, but I just didn't have enough money to make the transition full time. And when I made that switch full time, and I'm in the mix, we always joked about it, like we say, in the trenches. But when you're in the trenches every day, you're just training like crazy hard, like Pulhada rounds all the time, and then you're drilling, and things are just they're different than the way you believed jiu-jitsu should be done, the way that you see jiu-jitsu, the way that you kind of fell in love with jiu-jitsu, and the way that things were happening were just a little bit different. And it just was really challenging for me to be like, okay, this is what the top guys are doing, so this is what I have to do if I want to be a top guy. And I'm like, but that doesn't really make that much sense to me in the way that I'm learning, the way that I've gotten all the way to brown belt so far, being my own coach, and just like it just didn't make sense to the same way. And so I was trying to do things the way that I saw these other guys doing, and there's no one sitting there telling you got to do this, you got to do that. But you see what the top guys are doing, you're trying to do that, and you're just like, it's a mental grind. You're just burning out, and all the time you're just getting burnt out, and it's so tough. And it just took the fun out of jiu-jitsu, the just go hard mentality all the time. The emphasis for me that makes jiu-jitsu fun is that feeling of when you learn something new, and then you have that like aha moment, and you get that little endorphin rush and everything. And then when you can apply that knowledge, that right there is what's special. That's what makes jiu-jitsu so much fun. And ultimately, that's what makes jiu-jitsu literally like addicting in your brain. It's the same things that are the same chemicals shooting off in much, much tinier doses. But anything in life where you're learning something new and you're able to apply it, you know, that's where people have the most passion from what I've learned. But I just didn't really have that passion anymore. I was kind of getting really depressed. I was in a really, really dark place at the time. Life was really, really tough. I'm living out of a van, and you know, life was just rough at that time. And so to take my hope away in that time of saying, this is the thing that I love, that is so much fun, and then it stops being fun and I stop loving it, because I thought I had to do it a different way or a certain way. Man, that was pretty brutal. That was tough. And so I was with my friend Caesar in Vegas for a competition, whatever. And we would talk about all these different things. And I was like, dude, Mikey's here somewhere. I was like, I've seen some videos of him here and there, and I've watched him compete a couple of times. I'm like, he's different. Like, I feel like, I don't know why I felt this, but I was like, I feel like he feels about jiu-jitsu the way that I feel about jiu-jitsu. Like, I have to talk to him. And I was like, told Caesar, I was like, where is he? You know, like, we got to figure this out, because Caesar knows people who knows people in the Las Vegas jiu-jitsu scene. And he was like, all right, fine. And so he starts like messaging a bunch of people. It didn't take too long. He's like, oh, he's going to be at this spot. I think it was like Dunham's or something like that. But he's like, he's going to be at this spot on Sunday or whatever. I was like, all right, we're going. And he was like, okay. And I made him drive me all the way over there. And so we trained, and like, I've trained with all the top guys in the world, like, or at least a lot of them. And when I tell you that, like, I have a decent guard, I feel like my passing's okay. You know, when I tell you that I ran out of ideas of things to try to attack this man, because I don't care about getting subbed, I don't care about getting beat, but I'm going to attack you nonstop the entire time. And when I ran out of ideas to attack this dude, I was like, I was trying to play like deep half guard and stuff. Like, I don't even do that. And he was just obliterating my guard, just subbing me left and right. And I was like, holy cow, like, this is insane. And so we were hanging out and talking afterwards for a couple hours even. And we started talking. It just next thing you know, it was like a couple hours. And I was just explaining things to Mikey and telling him, and he had gone through very, very similar things that I had. And we both saw jiu-jitsu the same way. And he really, really helped me to be like, hey man, like I saw him and I was like, I like, you can do this at the top level. You can make it to the top level, the way that you're perceiving jiu-jitsu, the way that you think about jiu-jitsu, and still maintain the love for jiu-jitsu that you have. And if somebody doesn't want to take your word for it, now you can point to Mikey and be like, he's already done it, bro. He's already done it. And it's the same. He's just way further along on that path. So he's way, way better. But I'm like, man, this is what's possible. And this is how I can do this. Like, all right, I got to keep doing what I'm doing. I just have to do it better. I have to revamp everything. I have to learn faster, learn smarter, just really rely on that knowledge and the technique and try to grow that as much as possible. And man, like, when I came back, I had like a whole new appreciation for it. And when I saw people like, you know, kind of doing the same thing as before, I didn't think like, hey, I have to do what this person is doing if I want to be a top level competitor. I was like, I can do it the way that I enjoy doing. I don't have to take the fun out of it. I can study as much as I want. I can drill the way that I want and make sure that I'm leveling up and improving. And that really put the fun back into it. And so, I mean, I'm super, super grateful to Mikey for having that talk and hanging out with me. Like, he didn't have to do that. And then, we just became friends over the years, after that meeting, and, you know, trained a whole bunch back and forth. Each time I would go there, you know, whatever. And, man, like, I'm just very, very grateful for what he did. And then at the same time, you know, having Nick, I'm tight with Nick, and Nick kind of had something a little similar maybe, but he was like my other homie that was like home base homie, you know. And it was like the two of us were like we would drill in the corner and we would drill differently, and we were learning differently, and we're studying, we're sharing notes, and, you know, we're taking those long train rides and just studying like crazy on these train rides and everything. And just, we were loving it. And, you know, we were in the grind, and yeah, there's aspects of it that suck, but when you have that hope and you have purpose and meaning in that grind, it's almost easy to do. You almost enjoy doing it, even though it is suffering. It's definitely something that is awesome. But yeah, Mikey really, really helped me with that. And then when we ended up leaving Marcelo's, and Mikey was like, hey, like, you know, can I promote you guys? Like, you guys are my homies, and this would be like a big deal kind of thing. And that was the dream come true. Honestly, that was literally like Nick and I remember when two of us talking about it, being like, all right, let's make a list. Like, who would you want to get promoted by? Like, you know, and it was just like, Mikey was just the dream. That would have been the coolest thing, because it really meant something, because character is so important to him, and just how much he's helped us. It just felt so right. And we were very, very lucky to have him to promote us and to teach us. And we've never had any coaches really like be there like, hey, yo, do this thing. Oh, how do we fix this problem? Oh, you just do this thing here. Just swipe like this, do that, move this way. And, you know, so anytime we get stuck on a problem here or there, it's like, it's so nice to know that we have someone who has those answers already. And we've never had that. So it's very, very cool.
That's awesome. Go ahead. I think I know what you're going to ask. So go ahead.
No, you don't.
Okay, go ahead then.
Can't read my mind.
I love the dynamic between you guys. This is so awesome.
All day, every day.
You know, like people put glass
Yeah.
each other. We need concrete. No, listen, it sounds like that moment where that day where not only you met Mikey, but also these conversations and that training session made a huge impact on you. I would like you to let us in on the train of thought in your mind when you're rolling with him and you're running out of ideas. Because but like walk me through, what are you thinking? Because that, you know, a lot of people listen, like even even myself, like I have been on the mat for 20 plus years, and you know, I don't find myself being some phenomenal grappler or anything. I just have a lot of passion for it, right? And I love sharing it. And I know your grappling is phenomenal in my eyes. And I look at Mikey, and he's completely different level, arguably one of the best currently that is out there, right? But I've never had privilege training with him. I want you to let me in. You are there with him, and you guys slap hands. Boom, life is going. And are you confident at that moment when you're starting? Like, what are you thinking? What's your and as this progressing on, what's happening in your head? Where's your confidence? How is this unfolding?
So, training with Mikey, and I understand people can hear what I'm about to say and be like, well, that's just because they're homies. He's just like. He's like, he's just like worshiping his coach or whatever, his idol. He's just hyping him up. It's not real. It's whatever. Yeah. I've trained with high level guys too. Okay. I do not say this lightly. I say this as someone who has trained with the who's who in jiu-jitsu, the highest level guys. And I've competed against literally world champions, European champions, Pan Am champions. I don't think I'm like horrible, but I have a lot to learn. After studying all the top guys and training with as many of them as I can and meeting them and all that, Mikey is, people don't even understand. They don't, it's like, you know how people don't even know what they don't know? People have no idea how far ahead technically that Mikey is. So if this was an arms race, right? And we say just invented, like say bow and arrow, sticks and stones. This dude is shooting lasers from outer space, and people are just vaporizing. All right. If jiu-jitsu was an arms race, Mikey's the guy that's like, oh, blink, and then you vaporize. It's that. When you roll with Mikey, and again, I know how this sounds, but have you ever seen X-Men?
Yeah.
And that the character Nightcrawler, and he's just like, yes. And he just pops up like this, and you're like, how did you How did you get over there? We joke about it. We're like, rolling with Mikey is like rolling with Nightcrawler. He's a ghost. It's not like you feel pressure in the way that, like, oh, he's squishing me. It's like, yeah, he's squishing you too. But the second, like, you turn anywhere, you grab anything, you frame, you push, he's not there. He's just not there. He's just a ghost. And I don't say this as like some blue belt who's rolled with black belt and was like mesmerized and just some athleticism was good enough to keep up or anything. I'm telling you, I've rolled dude, it's just crazy. Like, all right, we'll use the very first day. And obviously it's gotten better, but not much. Man, this dude, like, just obliterated anything that I tried without any effort. And then was just like so chill about it. And I came over and I sat down and I was like, what the heck just happened? Like, I'm trying to process this because I've rolled with high level guys and I can grab them. I can frame them away for a little bit. I can, okay. And I sit down on the wall and Renee is sitting there and he's like, yeah, bro, because that happens to everybody. He goes, I've seen world champions come in here. And he's like, big guys, little guys, it doesn't matter. He goes, I've seen that happen to everybody. And I was just like, what? Like, it was the craziest thing ever. And just, he's not arrogant. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't ever hype himself up because he knows something that I have learned since, but he knows how far jiu-jitsu can go. He's seen that it can go so much further. And he realizes, like, wow, it can go so much further. And so he doesn't act around like he knows everything because he's always learning. This dude is leveling up so fast. Aside from Nick and, like, myself, like, I don't think I've ever seen any human work that hard and study that hard and learn and level up that fast. It's ungodly. It's just insane. It's the craziest thing ever. Yeah.
Do you think that there is a possibility for all of us to achieve that level of knowledge, comprehension, execution, and floatiness? I don't even know how to describe this. That's that level skill.
It would be analogous to, could we all be theoretical physicists? No. Or yes, depending on, are you willing to sacrifice all your time into that one thing and learning all that information and everything? If you're willing to do that, then yes. And then the other question is, can you be a theoretical physicist in 2 years? No. It's like, you want to be a super high level scientist or something. It's going to take you quite a long time to learn and study and read and whatever it is that you have to do to achieve that level. It's going to take you quite a long time. Mikey started when he was like 4. And imagine if when you were born, right, no matter of your talent, your athleticism, forget all of that. Imagine if you started from 4 years old and your parents said, we're going to put you in a chamber, and then all we're going to do is things that's going to help you get better at physics. Nothing else. They're going to end up probably being the best physicist ever to live, right? That's essentially what Mikey did. Mikey was like, loved jiu-jitsu, and then just like, he's just been studying it and trying to learn more and learn better and learn how to learn more and organize things. And he's done it wildly on his own. And it's the craziest thing ever. And I think, yeah, if you have the time to put in and you're willing to apply all of your time into learning that, then yeah, I believe that 100%. If you're not maybe going to reach Mikey's level or a level beyond Mikey, maybe that's not a real possibility because of time constraints, because there's life that gets in the way, because of whatever else. It's like, would you still want to reach the highest level that you could possibly reach? And the answer is, well, yeah, of course. You like making money? Okay. Are you going to make as much as Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk? No. It's like, well, why are you even bothering? It's like, well, because you need a certain level of money to keep you doing the things that you love to do and to have to survive and everything else. So it's like, you're not going to just quit just because you can never make that much. So me personally, I'm 30 years old. I probably will never reach the level of jiu-jitsu that Mikey's on. If I could reach that, by the time I reach that, he's already gone. But I don't care. What I care about is just trying to reach the top level that I can reach. And if that gets to that level one day, man, that would be awesome. But I put all my time, all my energy and effort into reaching the highest level that I can possibly reach, and trying to not leave any cash on the table, not cut any corners. So I got to take care of my rehab. I got to take care of, all these different things. I got to study like crazy. I got to drill like crazy. I got to pay to go all these different competitions and stuff. I got to do all the different things that go into it to help you reach that level. So yeah, 100%. And if I don't believe that, how can I in a good conscience tell, an older student of mine who pays to train at my academy that, like, why are they training then? Oh yeah, just get in shape, get fit. It's like, all right, that's cool. But like, there's more efficient ways to do that. And if there's a more efficient way to do it, then you're not going to waste your time. The real reason that people want to train jiu-jitsu is for that feeling of leveling up and learning something. Now they might come in and they might have other side effects of, getting in better shape, losing weight, the camaraderie. There's so many positive benefits to jiu-jitsu, but ultimately, why do you play jiu-jitsu? You play the game of jiu-jitsu because it is fun and you love that feeling of learning something new. You get that little spark and then you're able to apply that information and you get that positive feedback loop going in your brain and you just want to keep it going. And you get a lot of people like that in the same location together. It's very easy to just keep going indefinitely and just see what level you can reach. So you always have challenge, but it's not too challenging, but it's not, not a challenge. So you're bored. So we have a saying in movement art, we say you should never be bored in any class. So if we're drilling something or teaching something and you already know it, work on something else. If you saw some cool thing online or YouTube or whatever, and that's what you want to work on and try, I guarantee you we've already seen the same video anyway. So just ask us about that too. And our students do that all the time. We're like teaching a passing thing and they're playing with some weird leg lock thing, whatever. And we're like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, this is so-and-so on video. This video on YouTube at like 4 minutes and 30 seconds in. Yeah, no, he does this like this, but what you should do is maybe do it like this, like that, blah, blah, blah. Like we do that all the time for our students. Our goal is to give our students what we never had. And so we believe that they should never be bored. And Nick and I both kind of have like ADHD. And so we understand like being bored is one of the worst things ever for learning. I wasn't maybe the best student in school. But as I learned, as I got older, it wasn't because I was stupid, which is what I was told. I was simply bored out of my mind. And when I started getting older and finding topics that I enjoyed reading about, even though I'm dyslexic, I would read a lot. Like I read like crazy. I read so much stuff, but I also can't read certain things because I can't even like focus on it. It's just insane. So I definitely will, still level up and learn and everything like that. But it's not because someone is stupid. It's just because they're bored more often than not. So if you can find something that really excites them, man, that's like one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah, no, Gary, did you want to,
I just with this never ending, always needing to improve, ever discouraged?
It's very easy to get discouraged if you look at, man, I'm never going to reach the end goal. But why would you worry about what you don't have? And just, it's kind of like that, the obstacle is the way a little bit. You have to enjoy the process. You should enjoy when you come in on the mat, you should feel like leveling up. When was the last time, let me ask you, when was the last time you were on the mat and you learned some new detail or new game-changing move and you were like, oh, I've never seen that, or whoa, I've never thought about it like that. Like, when was the last time that you had that like aha moment? And everybody has this when they're a white belt and they learn what a kimura is. You have that like aha moment. Can you remember that moment?
It happens quite often. I got into this way older. I'm still pretty new at this. So it does happen quite a bit still. And I think that's what keeps me going at my age is like, this now is going to make every day a little easier is the kind of the way I look at those moments. So it's not like, I don't compete. So it's not like, I can now apply this on this grander stage or anything like that. It's like, okay, tomorrow this is going to be easier for me because I just picked this up. So that's how it works for me.
That's literally like we try to help our students to feel that feeling that you're feeling every day. And it doesn't matter if they're a white belt or a black belt. Nick and I feel that same feeling every single day. And the biggest shame in jiu-jitsu is that these high level guys get to a spot and they stop studying, they stop learning and thinking analytically about their jiu-jitsu and organizing it and everything. And they say, up to a certain level, once you get to purple belt or brown belt, everybody knows all the same techniques. It's all the same after that. It's just who applies them better, who's faster, who's more athletic, and so on. And I've heard these things said so many times, and I'm like, it's just not true. It's just flat out not true. That would be analogous to saying, once you get to a certain level, say you're a master at chess. Once you get to a certain level, it's not about what moves you make. Everybody knows all the moves. It's about who makes the moves faster. That's not real. That's not how that works. It's about the moves. It's about who makes which move to counter which move. It never ends. And so it's a huge shame and something that's really, really, it kind of breaks my heart and Nick's heart as well. We kind of always send these videos to each other. We see people who are like teaching certain things and we're like, why would you do that? Like, oh my goodness.
But that's the beauty behind jiu-jitsu, right? The continuous evolution, that's number one, but also the ability to continue learn new things. After a decade or 2 or 3 or 4 on the mat, you can still have these aha moments. You can still adjust things.
But that's the thing is you're saying like you can still have them, like they're rare. Like that's what I'm saying is like it shouldn't be like a rare occurrence because you're higher level. It should be more frequent.
No, what I'm saying is if you continue studying, if you continue working on it, if you continue exploring, those moments will come up regardless of where you are in your journey, even after 2, 3, 4 decades of being on the mat, right? Because, I mean, just simply thinking about it, that if jiu-jitsus continue evolving, even if you learn that kimura, 10 years later, that kimura is executed very differently. And we've seen this over and over and over. And as long as you stay open-minded about it and continue evolving with it, you will experience these aha moments, right? That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, 100%. And we kind of talked about that earlier. Like, are you evolving or not? And that's what I'm saying. Like it's so heartbreaking to see these guys get black belts, even if they're competing at a high level or not. And then they start teaching things, and you're just like, why? Like you're not even trying to evolve. Like the information is out there. Like watch an instructional, watch YouTube, watch anything, study anything, and it's like they don't evolve. But I couldn't agree with you more. If you keep evolving like that, you're going to continue to have that feeling all the time. You're never going to have a plateau. We always kind of joke about it. We don't really believe in plateaus. It's just kind of like you fall into a lazy habit of thinking is really what it is.
Yeah, Gary. Gary even talk about the plateau, it doesn't exist. It's a mental state, in my opinion. But
so with I forgot what I was going to ask. With that, so how do you teach this to someone who's new? How do you break down, your game is so different than say, it was 10 years ago. How do you take what you're doing now, and maybe put that aside or modify it to the new person?
That's a wonderful question. So we really strongly believe in teaching people how to think, not what to think. So I'll go back to the chess thing again, because I already used that. And I do believe it is a good comparison, although it is cliche. Say you want to teach someone how to play the game of chess. What's the first thing you're going to teach them? A lot of people will teach them like the moves. This piece can do this. This piece can do that. But that's really not what you should teach first. Really what you should teach is like the point of the game. And then you should teach, like, why does the game work? And then you can start to explain to them why it's fun for you. And when they buy into the idea that it can be fun and creative and played in multiple different ways, like, you can then give them a couple concepts where they can start to think on their own, maybe I could do this thing or that thing. But they don't really know how any of the pieces move yet. So then when they get to that level, you start teaching them how all the pieces move. Now they're at this point of understanding where, albeit a very low level, they understand why jiu-jitsu. They understand how jiu-jitsu is supposed to function at the highest level. And then it's plug and play on the moves. So it's like, I want to get to that thing. I want to do this thing. So if a white belt comes in, we're going to be like, here's a rough idea of jiu-jitsu. And then here's a point for you to get to. Here's the game for you, right? Like, maybe it's like, try to get around their legs. Okay, go. And now they're playing a game instantly. And then when they understand there's a point I have to get to, they understand why jiu-jitsu, then they understand there's a point that I have to get to, say side control or just past their legs and somehow. And then you say, okay, go. And you let them play the game. When they start playing that game, if they're playing against somebody experienced, they're going to fail a lot. They're going to be like, this game's stupid. It's too hard. It's like, well, yeah, because they're good. It's like, how could you make it easier? It's like every time they step on my shoulder, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, I can't smash them. There's a foot in my way. It's like, oh, well, turns out you can change your angle and swipe the frame off or do this thing or that thing. And then now what happened in that exchange? They came to you and they said, I want to know how to win this game. They're doing this thing. They're stepping on my shoulder. I don't like it. How do I beat it? They want to know the information. And you cannot help somebody who does not want to be helped. But when they can come to you and you can get them to come to you and get them to understand, like, that situation, to ask that question of, man, they're stepping on my shoulder or they're pulling my sleeve or whatever that thing is. They're identifying what's going on, what the problem is on their path to victory. And then they need help. That's how we can get people to level up so much faster, have fun doing it, and always have that spark where they're learning something new.
Yeah, you definitely, everything we're talking about today is a new way of teaching, new way of thinking about jiu-jitsu, less steps, more concepts, really deeper understanding of mechanics, deeper understanding of just the game itself versus just learning, A, B, C, D. So I greatly appreciate all this. This is very new way of looking at this, and I wish more people looked at it that way. I think jiu-jitsu will continue evolving from this cookie cutter, what it used to be, to the potential that it has to be in the future, right? Yeah. At the same time, we are in this pivot point. I think in the last 5 to 10 years to today, it is this continuous evolution of jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is changing drastically and very fast in a very rapid pace, not only from technology perspective, but also how we teach, how we do it, how we study it. I mean, all that has a tremendous impact on the end result of what we see today and what is to come in the future. So I do appreciate everything that, all your thoughts today. Gary, why are you smiling? This is a serious topic. Don't you see how serious he is? I'm serious.
First I'm grumpy, and now that I'm smiling, I'm getting bagged on for that too.
Yeah. Dude, it's a problem. It doesn't matter what you do. You just got a problem with it.
Absolutely.
He's with me. He's with me on this.
And everybody asks me why I come here, and now I'm having a hard time figuring it out.
Dude, it's so funny too. It's like Nick and I have a saying. I'm always joking with him, like when we're cutting weight or whatever. It's like something happens, but he'll always be joking with me, and I'll be like, "Man, with enemies like you, who needs friends?"
Absolutely, I empathize.
Yeah, Gary allows me. You have a question? I'm about to wrap this up.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. I don't know where you're at here, but I know we do have a couple more things to get to.
Yeah.
Want to do the question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. End of each episode. Okay, you want to do it. Go ahead and do it. I'm leaving this one.
The end of each episode, we have a question from the guest previous to you. They did not know who would be sitting in their seat. And we had Rafael Lovato Sr. on. And I think we talked a lot about this already today, so we might have to change it up. But he wanted to know the guest's opinion on the current evolution of jiu-jitsu in the past 15 years or so. And I think we really talked a lot about that. So I don't know if maybe we can change it to the next 15 years. What do you see in the future, the evolution going forward?
Wow, that's a really good question. And that's so cool that it's coming from him too. I'm a big fan of the Lovatos and what they've done in the sport. It's super, super cool. So much respect for them.
No pressure. He will be listening.
Yes. And he's going to be with us here on the mats in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
so
we have
we're going to point this out.
Please tell him that I said hi, and I am a big fan. And it was really, really cool to see both him and his relationship with his father on the mats is really, really cool. And inspiring as well with, myself and my mom on the mats is really, really cool to see. But yeah, definitely a big fan. So let him know that. That's a wonderful question. The next 15 years, what was it? How is it going to improve?
Yeah. What's the evolution? We've talked about the evolution of the past 10, 15. What do you see in the future?
I think the real evolution of the past is how information gets passed on. And then we've already seen how information is spread so much more rapidly in the jiu-jitsu community. And I think we're going to see a dissolvement of the old kind of the cliches, like line up a certain way, bow, call me sensei, call me professor. I don't think as jiu-jitsu becomes much more mainstream, I think we are going to lose a lot more of those. You can't cross train. You have to ask permission to do this, that, and the third. I think we're going to lose a lot more of the traditional aspect of jiu-jitsu. And I think we're going to gain far better minds who are capable of articulating and transferring that information to the next generation. So we're going to have kids coming through who are learning in this way, who are then able to teach. Even in our kids program, we literally just our kids program, we can have them teach you a certain position or whatever, and they should be able to tell you and teach them a position with a deep level of understanding. And that should be the goal. And I think we're really going to see people become much better instructors, much more nerdy with jiu-jitsu. And I'm really excited to see that. I think we're still always going to have the athletic component, and we should. But I would like that split to be ideally it would be 70-30, 80-20, something like that in the side of knowledge. But you could also play it on the more athletic side. But I think as jiu-jitsu evolves, we're seeing more and more of a knowledge-based game because the information is spreading more quickly, because people are being better instructors. And hopefully we can see a much higher level of professionalism in the athletes and for the athletes from the organizations. That would be absolutely amazing. Being a professional jiu-jitsu athlete right now is sounds really cool until someone asks you how much you make. And it does not sound so cool after that.
Well, and actually, as you were talking about it, I wanted to jump in and ask you, and you kind of answered that question already. But do you think in the next 15, next decade or two, will jiu-jitsu become a truly professional sport? To the point,
yes.
Think of it as, baseball, hockey, soccer, basketball, whatever it is. These guys make money because they are the best of the best. And today we see some signs of it. There are some who will make $1 million on jiu-jitsu, and that's great, but that's not accessible to 99.99% of the population of jiu-jitsu. This is just a handful of them out there.
Yeah.
Do you think jiu-jitsu has the opportunity?
Yeah, I don't think jiu-jitsu has the opportunity to get to the basketball, baseball, football level of money. There just simply isn't as many people who are doing the sport, people who are watching the sport. There just isn't there just aren't those numbers there, being that it is an individual sport. So they have to compete with any team sport already right there. So if you have, a soccer team versus a jiu-jitsu athlete, you're talking about 18 people versus 1 or 2 people. So there isn't the numbers, but I do think we're going to see a huge rise. So like, I don't think the money will get there, but I do believe that we're going to see a huge rise in the level of professionalism of both the athletes and how the athletes are treated. A much larger increase in the pay for sure, but I don't think it will ever reach the baseball, basketball, team sport level of pay that will happen. And you can see this in other sports where it's like an individual sport. There's something like, I don't know, like golf or something else where it's like, it's an individual. There's a lot of money in it. It's very professional. Obviously there's much more money behind golf. But the average player isn't making Tiger Woods money. They are making very, very good money. There is a huge level of professionalism. They are well respected, but they're not going to make that kind of money. I think that's kind of where we're headed.
Well, like people making a living off of it and a decent living, but just not becoming these mega stars, these mega millionaires.
It's kind of like, and you can see the evolution in the UFC and MMA, where you have so many athletes. There's different organizations. They can make money off of these different organizations, sponsors, everything else. And you can really make a living being a fighter now. Not a good living, but if you're one of the top guys, you can make a good living. But I think in the next, 15, 20 years, the average is going to be enough to sustain an athlete in a comfortable way for sure.
Hope we stick around to see that.
I'm getting up there.
Gary's getting up there.
Retiring, they'll start paying like crazy money.
Yeah, well, I'll never be in that category anyway, but it'll be nice to see happen. It'll be nice to see people come through here doing a seminar, not because they need to, right? But because they want to, because they have the availability to go where they want, not to pay their nutritionist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For real.
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
Well, listen, it all has to start somewhere. I think, we are well on the way. You look at Jiu-Jitsu 20 years ago, it was not even near to what it is today. And I think 20 years from now is going to be by far different than what it is today. Our kids are going to have completely different lives, if they choose to have Jiu-Jitsu as part of their life. So I'm looking forward to it. It is slow evolution, but at the same time, last few years has been pretty rapid as far as Jiu-Jitsu is concerned. So I don't know. I'm actually very hopeful on this.
Sweet.
Dan, it's been an hour and a half almost. Man, wow. We've been chatting.
We haven't even got to what's your favorite Philly cheesesteak yet.
Oh, that's oh god. I haven't hit Angelo's yet. I know I'm from here. I haven't hit Angelo's yet, but I hear it's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, dude. There's so many places. You're gonna be pretty hard pressed to not find a good cheesesteak at basically anywhere. But I really like Tony Luke's. There's so many places, and it's like you're gonna be crucified to pick one place over another place.
You better make up your mind, because we come and visit, and I want the best of the best. So
yeah, I mean, I'll spend a little time on the mat, but it's really all about hitting the cheesesteaks.
So I'm a big sandwich guy. I'm into like a good Italian hoagie, they call it, and man, that's what gets me. I really like cheesesteaks. They're great, but it doesn't hit the same way as an Italian hoagie for me. So for one of those, there's a place called Palante's. There's a place called Goomba's. I can give you a lot of those places. Man. I'll give you some good sandwiches, but I would take you guys to Tony Luke's or Angelo's right now. If you came and visited.
There you go.
Now I'm hungry. Thanks.
Yeah, maybe we have new sponsors.
Thanks for all this.
Bro, when I cut weight, it's just my whole Instagram feed is just nothing but just like food. It's amazing.
Nice.
All right, Danny. Let's wrap this up for today. Where can the people find you? We obviously you're in Philly, but Instagram, social media, anywhere, websites, anything. Plug it in.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for having me on here. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to share, my love of jiu-jitsu and to talk about jiu-jitsu with some people who are like-minded. You can hit us up. movementart.online is the website for our academy. We have Movement Art Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram. We post like technique videos on there and all different types of stuff. So if you want to, message us or anything, hit us up on there. My Instagram is @DannyFreestyle, but the L was taken, so I used a 1 instead. But it should pop up, hopefully. And yeah, again, same thing. I post like technique videos on there. I post a lot of quotes. I read a lot, and so I will, post a photo and post a quote. And then anytime where I'm like kind of feeling off about it, I'll scroll back and I look at my own feed, and I'm like, oh right, don't be a baby. Okay, then I'll always like go train harder. So there's a lot of that on there. Yeah, it's thank you guys so much for having me. And if anybody wants to message me or whatever on social media, at Danny Freestyle is the Instagram. That's the one I'm probably going to respond to the quickest. But I know probably a lot of people say that, but Nick, myself, we're both very, very accessible to people. If you got a jiu-jitsu question or a mental like mindset question, something like that, just hit us up. If you just want to say hi, it doesn't matter. Hit us up, and we really try to respond to everybody, because that was one huge thing for us that we always thought was the coolest thing, the way that somebody who's really, really kind of like, taking that path and doing that thing, like, I want to ask them, man, what do they think about this? And you don't have the opportunity to ask them. So we wanted to be like, man, if we ever get like really big in the sport, like we're going to make sure we're accessible to people as well. So yeah, hit us up, message us, any questions, anything like that. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Hey, before you go, you read nonfiction or fiction?
Nonfiction.
Best book. Your favorite. Drop it now. Go.
Man, oh God, that's such a hard one.
What are you reading now?
Probably Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is a really, really good book. There's so many. I like to read a lot of history.
Yeah.
I just recently read a book about the Rwandan genocide. A lot of like heavier topics, to be honest with you, but there's so many life lessons in there and things that are amazing. Man's Search for Meaning. There's so many. If I gave you guys a list, it'd be like, oh, like what? But
oh no, I'm a big reader, so that's why I asked. All right, Danny, let's wrap this up. Thanks for being here. We do wish you the best of luck of everything you do. We'll be following you from sidelines. And if you're ever in Chicago, I always say, let us know, because I would love to have you.
Oh, what? I was just there recently. I went to Giordano for the pizza.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can criticize me after.
No, that's Call me next
time.
If you when you visit, that's the touristy one. That's a good way to get your feet wet.
All right,
but when you come back, we'll get you the real stuff.
The real stuff.
The good stuff.
Guys, you guys are awesome. So much fun to listen to, and now to be on as a guest. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Danny. Thank you. Man. Peace.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.